Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Just doing my usual volume check. Let me know how the music is. Good. I was joking with Claire the other day that I should embrace my Somerset heritage and start every stream with "Right, my lovers." So there we go, I did it. So, where are we? What have I been doing? So, I have updated Unreal Engine to 5.4, or 5.4.1 to be specific, because we had an issue with nanite tessellation not working with Vulkan. It just seems that in 5.3 that just wasn't set up to work that way. Fortunately, in 5.4 it's working fine. We do seem to still have a few crash issues on Proton, but other than that, it seems to be alright. And what that gives us is actual carpet. 3D. Ooh, look at that, 3D. To be fair, the height map could be better. Claire said it reminds her of a mountain range. I think with a few extra fibre, like detail textures on there, that should be alright. Will there be caps on the bolts? Yeah, I was looking at that. Undecided. I mean, they are recessed, so they're not actually at floor level. But yeah, we'll have a look. The other question is to whether or not the join should be less between the tiles. I don't want it to end up looking like a patchwork of tiles, but I think it's all right. But we'll continue to assess. You can see I've had a slight change on the design here, so I've decided just to pull that round, kind of how it is now on the demo build, but with the tiles. Obviously this is going to be a security desk, but I've realised since putting that in, I think that needs to come forward a bit. So what I'll probably do is have it maybe start here and kind of finish here. So as you're coming up the stairs, you need enough walking space to get past the desk comfortably, but also around the back as well. It doesn't need to be a huge desk, it's literally just a chair with maybe like a U-shaped station. The idea is that a security guy will sit here and he controls all of the entry points onto B-Deck. Just to stop any low-level crew members making their way to the bridge when they shouldn't be. What else? So, there's a few issues with 5.4. Epic have introduced something called Zen Store, which is their new file storage system for the derived data cache. If you come down here, you've got this new Zen dashboard thing, which wasn't in 5.3. And for some reason, even though you set it to off by default, it runs it anyway. So there's like a little file server running in the background, and I can't turn it off. You know, I posted on Unreal Slackers and no one there seemed to know either, but I don't know whether that's a bug or whether it's designed that way. But it wouldn't package at all. I couldn't even build the project, and it took me about 5 hours in the end to upgrade to 5.4. So what I had to do in the end is just turn it on in the ini files And then everything worked, and it built and it packaged and everything was fine. So just word of warning, if you are upgrading to 5.4, you might be forced into this Zen store thing. But yeah, seems to work fine though. I think the idea behind it is that it's a more efficient way of storing assets. So certainly while you're in the editor, like when you click play an editor, it should load quicker and things should stream in quicker. And we have had reports of people getting faster loading speeds on 5.4 now, so that's a good thing. So there was that, and also, for some reason, all the panels are off. So they're all kind of displaying their default textures without being lit. Why is that so tiny as well? I'm not sure why that is. In the blueprint, in the constructor, I've added just a couple of bits here to set the custom primitive data on those meshes, which is what defines their brightness and their color and everything. So even though I'm forcing it in the constructor, and not even there either, I'm also literally setting it on the mesh directly as well. And yet, despite doing those two things, they're still not on, which is odd. And I think that's probably something to do with the fact that the configuration of these... Actually, that's a good point, actually, because it's doing this before it runs the parent. And what the parent does is it makes use of this macro to set the lights up, which is held on a macro library, which I set up originally thinking it was a good idea to have a macro library for all commonly used macros, but over time this has become very specific just for the lighting master, so I need to move this onto the actual lighting master itself as a function rather than referencing an external macro library, which I think will be a lot more efficient. But this might be why it's doing what it's doing. This looks more complicated than it is. It's literally just setting up the lights, and this nightmare down here is because the actual rect light, the physical light, uses sRGB as its color, whereas the actual physical mesh uses linear color, and those two different color spaces behave differently with a Kelvin value, and that's been a bit of a nightmare. So what I've been doing here is basically hacking it to have the colors come up the same, so that the ceiling bounce color is the same as the physical light color. So yeah, that's why this looks horrible, because that's just some experimentation I was doing. But yeah, talking about that has just made me think, what if I do that after it runs that? Does that actually fix the issue? Oh, no it doesn't. So yeah, so I don't know why that's doing that. When it runs in the editor, it's fine, and it runs fine in game. So it's literally just in the editor itself when the lights aren't coming on, which is odd. And again, this is something which is unique to 5.4, so there's some peculiarity in 5.4 causing this. Which oddly though, the ceiling bounce light is using the same process, so that's also using custom primitive data on a mesh, so why it works for that but not the lights, I don't know. I'm sure it will all come out in the wash. But yeah, other than that, I haven't seen any negative things from upgrading to 5.4. Everything's generally been positive. It tends to run quicker, load quicker. Not by much, but you know, enough that it's an improvement. Will the background techie stuff be used in the tech manual? It will. If you mean like all this, then yes. So things like, these floor panels, I might do a cutaway of a floor panel to show their structure internally. Essentially, it's a metal sheet wrapped in rubber, and that rubber kind of helps keep noise and vibrations down. And then on top of that rubber, you have a selection of different just flooring choices, from the carpet to the wood to the acrylic, and also I'll be adding rubber as well, like the ones in engineering. And things like the structure of the ship, all of that's going to be in the tech manual. Got a bit of a dodgy throat tonight, so you'll have to forgive me clearing my throat. So, what am I doing? Well, I've just added these tiles in, and actually, while I'm doing that, I will demonstrate the process a little bit. So if I just sneakily click on that. So in order to position these floor tiles, I've kind of changed my process a little bit. So you'll see we've now got these anchor points, and before I'd have one for the floor, one for the wall, one for the ceiling. But I thought I'd combine them into a single anchor, which is at the exact midpoint of each floor tile. And if you recall from my previous streams, the corridors are now properly segmented. So that means if I turn off this minute, turn off that one. So you can see here you've got a single segment each time. Now if we have a single anchor point in the middle, then that's good for the floor, it's good for the walls, it's good for the ceiling. So that's what I've started doing here. A single anchor point in the middle of each segment, and then I can position walls and floors really easily, just clicking them into place like Lego bricks. And the process for that is, you'll see here that I've kind of captured the location in the world of where that spot is, which is what I then enter into here as a location for each socket. So I enter that location in there, and then for the orientation, because that's the important part, what I do is I take our protractory thing and I just do like, where is the red axis, and then measure the angle to there. So that's 74.399 degrees. So that's what I would put in to Unreal. So for each one, that's obviously an annoyingly manual process. Why is that over there? But it's just the nature of the beast. There's no way of doing that automatically, so I just kind of have to go and measure each one separately. But what I will do now that I have done that is I will save those in a group so they're attached to the floor plate. So for future reference, when it comes to making the wall panels and things, I can just use that same anchor point. Helps keep them all aligned and all consistent. I should have deleted these as I went, really. You should be in the floors group. And then we want C deck sheet. So all of these little anchor points all need to be grouped together. which will then take that group, which will add it into that group, and that's preserved now. Could you maybe add a security camera update where you could look at each section of the ship from a CCTV? Yes, so I built that for the Orville back in the day, and it was really heavy on performance, because what you're essentially doing is updating a live render target. So you're doing a scene capture with a camera in the world, and then like updating a texture at like 60 frames a second. So in order to make that viable, the frame rate can't be real time, otherwise it lags like crazy. But yeah, we will be doing that on the security station on the bridge. There will definitely be CCTV. Just do the same with these anchor points as well, add into this floor mesh. Let's keep them organized. Okay, so there's three things I need to do here now, really. I need to build some ceiling panels for here. And these ones were never final, so these ones need redoing. Like at the moment, this is one solid thing. It is separate meshes, but visually it's one solid lump of ceiling. And I want that to be actual separate panels, sort of realistically. So that needs all separating out. And I'll probably start with these ones, just to get an idea of what I want that to look like. And I also need to do the wall panels with the handrail. And I'll probably go ahead and just I'll put a frontage on the VIP quarters here for the next demo update, just to sort of finish this corridor off. I won't do anything inside the rooms yet, but I'll at least give them a front paneling. And then really it's all about building out the rest of C deck. So as you can see, it's a little bit of a mess. Actually, why don't we put it to a vote in the stream? So, do you want me to continue building C deck, or do you want to see me build some ceiling panels for B deck? Make your voices heard. Yeah, I think that's overwhelmingly C deck. So let's go and do that. Right then, so that means we need to turn off that. Let's get rid of the sheet metal up top there, and probably that as well. Now, fortunately, because the rest of, well, the central core of the ship is a circle, so there can be a lot of copy-paste here. The only bit that's going to be a bit different on C deck, well, probably C through E versus B deck, is these panels here are probably going to be a slightly different size. Yeah, so the port and the starboard side are both going to have 2 rooms, which means this separation is fine. You've got 3 segments there, door in the middle, 3 segments there, door in the middle, window each side, and then the room at the front of C deck here. I'm going to make this the astrometry lab. So this is going to be 2 decks tall and have a hollow display in it for all the kind of astrometry / astrometrics and all of that. We'll give it a lot of room to breathe. Something you can't see in game right now, because usually it's blocked off, is this area here behind the main stairwell. On every deck, apart from B deck, this is going to be the bathrooms for that deck, and also maintenance as well, so you'll have things like the cleaning cupboard and all that stuff. So the area immediately behind the stairwell is going to be reserved for those things. Right, so that side is good, and this side looks good. It's the panel separation here. So essentially I measure from point to point. So this one is 221. So that's probably one of the smallest panels we're going to have on this side. I try and keep the panels consistently to 2.5 meters if I can, but obviously with it being a curve that's not always possible. So this one is 284, so it's a little bit bigger than I'd like, but not terribly so. As you work out to the outer rings, the curve is less severe, so you don't get as much of a difference in size between the inner and outer. It's only really this central ring where that becomes an issue. Alan, 12 to 15 FPS increase in the VIP lounge. Yes, that's very good. Claire was pointing that out as well, actually. The upper sort of balcony area, if you stand on a fresh game on the opposite side of the lift to Earth out the window, and then look through the lift at Earth, that's probably the area of the game where there's the most transparency going on. I usually drop down to about 40 FPS there on my 2080, which granted is heat throttling, but still. Claire was getting pretty consistently 50 to 60 FPS everywhere on 5.4. So it looks that 5.4 has really kind of helped performance-wise, which is nice. Fred O'Shea, yes, all crew members will have their own private quarters. We were thinking about whether or not to have bunks and have more crew, but we figured for sort of sanity reasons and sort of personal space reasons, on a extended mission away from Earth, I think people, for their very mental health, would be better off having their own dedicated space that's theirs. The plumbing, by the way, yes, that's going to be routed the same way as the electrical cables. Because of the nature of the fact this is a circle, what I was doing is I was having the internal rooms here angled, like directly facing the center point, which created this sort of wedge shape at the edge of each corridor. And I was going to use this wedge shape as the drop area for all the pipes and things going down. But I've decided to not do that and go with just straight walls. But there should still be plenty enough room to run pipes down. We could maybe make that the corner points. But say if this was a crew quarters, for example, we'll have it so that the back wall of the bathroom is always going to be facing one of these cavities, and then you'd have a pipe running all the way through here, and that would service the back of the bathroom on both crew quarters, and that would run into this cavity here and then drop down to the deck below, and then all the way at the bottom is where you'd find all the waste recycling facility, fresh water, all that sort of thing. Yeah, the fact I'm only getting 40 FPS on my 2080 is it's not reflective of the performance of a 2080, because the 2080 Ti is, even today, still a very good card and faster than most of the other cards on the market. It's just that mine's old and knackered. And probably caked in dust. I haven't actually looked. That's probably why it's heat throttling. The heat sink's probably absolutely rammed. When I start a game, I usually get around about 110 FPS, and then it quickly drops down to about 70 after about 30 seconds or so. As soon as it heats up, it just throttles immediately. Okay, anyway, so how many segments is this? So originally, I was always using 4 segments for these curves, but now we're using nanite. I've increased that to 6. We could go a lot higher than that, but that just becomes unwieldy to work with. These need to go up to the proper height. I've played with lots of different designs for having access cut into these panels. Whether or not we have a solid wall, but just like a little hatch there. And I think for the sake of lightening holes, as they'd call them, we'll just go and make this more of a frame than a actual wall. Like the inner wall is the actual wall. This is just additional support structure and a way of keeping pipes and things out of the corridor. So on that note, This is the Tools on Surface plugin from Fredo6. I give it a 30 centimeter cut there. Then we need to round that off. So what I will do, because we need the axes to be facing the correct way, so just set those up a sec. Right. And now I can copy that out in a straight line without it going off to one side or anything. Just for simplicity's sake, I'll square that off. It's a nice flat surface to work with. Should give us a nice square. Now all I need to do is extrude that, remove those faces, give it a 30 centimeter cut. And because this is proper geometry, it also needs some depth to it, so I'll give it its 1 inch thickness. I think I just extruded that in the wrong direction, didn't I? I did. Not that way, it needs to go that way. Pop that through there. Yeah, there's our cut. Remove that inner face because we don't need that anymore. I didn't need to double that up in size actually, I was thinking of doors. Right, there we go. There's our nice smooth cut. And then we just add a bit of an edge chamfer there. So give it 0.4. Doesn't need to be 12-sided. Remove stray geometry, smooth it all up, and there we go. All these are the same size, so I don't know why they're not a component, so that needs to be a component. And we'll just copy that over. We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we just do times 5. And the same on the other side, which means we can just copy the whole lot, 180 degrees. And there are our wall panels. Nice and simple. So for here, for example, because these panels are the same size as the ones on B deck, I won't need to remake these panels, like the floor panels and things. I can use the same ones, so they're physically the same size, so that's good. These ones, however, will need to be slightly different because they've got the T-piece there, the straight corridor. These are the same though. Which means I can also, to save a bit of time, if we copy that one and that one. I expanded the decks, so that should be 350. So most of this should line up. Just remove the tag from those a minute. Get rid of that. Get that back on. So if we remove that one and that one, paste those ones back in. Okay, so there's a few bits to change on here, but that's fine. So this bit should be largely the same. So that's the same. That one's a copy of this side. Andreas, yeah, this is SketchUp Pro. Ranzer1255, yeah, good question there. And when removing the floor and wall panels, say to work on something behind them or to replace them, will they be the bulky physical objects or an inventory item? So how inventory is handled in the game is still a little bit in flux. So, like when you go down to a planetary surface, we want you to be able to collect things. So something like a backpack will be needed, and then you'll be able to put things in the backpack. Now, obviously, we can't do that physically in a physics way, so there needs to be some kind of inventory system to manage that. But at the same time, we do want everything to be physicalized. So when it's not in a storage container, we want it to be a visible physical object in the world. Now, but the issue with wall panels is they're all different. So, like, even here, you've got like 4 different width panels going along there. Not to mention things like the corner pieces and every other unique little fiddly bit that we might have. So the way we're going to do this is when you remove a wall panel, or you 3D print a new wall panel, they will exist in the world as a box. So like it's packed in a crate. And that's what you'll be carrying around the world. So it will be a kind of semi-sci-fi looking box with wall panel written on it. And then when you use that box on the space where the wall panel goes, it will become whatever wall panel fits that space. So you could remove this wall panel and have it as a box in your hand. And when you use that box on this space, it will be this wall panel that appears. Just to keep it simple. Otherwise, we'd need to make all of them unique objects. Yeah, exactly. It's an Acme brand wall panel. So, yeah, it's one size fits all, and they magically fit whichever slot you're putting them in. Are we planning on a little more sci-fi, such as Quark or Electro weak stars into the universe? Yeah, we'll have some sci-fi stuff out there. So, you know, first and foremost, we're putting all the real sciencey stuff. Once we've done what we know to exist in science, we'll then address things which are kind of theoretically supposed to exist, but we haven't found yet. So we'll add those in as well. And then we'll also have a scattering of pure sci-fi things as well, just to keep, add flavor to the galaxy. So, there might be a nebula out there which is highly corrosive to the ship's hull, and perhaps something nice that you want to find will be in that nebula somewhere. Things like that, just to, spice up the gameplay. Thank you, Fredichet, for the $5. Question, and this is a very important question, is how many stars would a starship ship if a starship could ship stars? Good question. I don't know. I think that's an unanswerable question. Too many. Andreas, yeah, it's a common question. Why am I using SketchUp? And the simple answer to that is I can get done quickly what I need to get done because I know what I'm doing in SketchUp. To move to something like Blender, which is, demonstrably a better product for sure in terms of game modeling, I'd need to learn all the keyboard shortcuts. I'd need to kind of learn my way around Blender. I do have Blender installed. I do use it from time to time, but I'm nowhere near as efficient in Blender as I am in SketchUp, so it's just a speed thing, really. I don't use SketchUp for any of the game-ready stuff, so things like custom collisions or UVs or normal face direction, anything like that. Anything that's needed for game representation I do within Unreal Engine itself. So when I export a mesh from SketchUp, it's literally just the geometry, nothing else. And texture slots. Geometry and texture slots, that's it. That's all I export. Yeah, so the wall panels, connection-wise, they bolt on in 4 places. So you would hang the panel. They'd probably just pop into these holes, just while you to allow you to hold it while you put the screws in, essentially. So they'll be bolted on. The reason there is so much detail behind them is because, yes, that detail will be visible from point to point. So every panel will have a hatch you can open to access the pipes and wires and things. But at the same time, every panel is also destructible. Every wall panel, every floor panel, is all completely destructible. So if you take damage in that area, or if you end up shooting that panel, you might just have some tatters of plastic hanging from the bolts, revealing the stuff that's behind it. Same with the floors. All the floors could be ripped up and damaged, and you've just got bits of floor attached to the bolts with all the underneath bits visible. So this is all part of what is the extended damage model on the ship. And that's also why, specifically, if we turn the B-deck interior back on a minute, B-deck, there. So the reason that each one of these is an individual actor in the world is so that each one of these can have its own health and dirt and everything else values associated with it. So, we can grunge up the carpet material, which leans into the janitor gameplay. So you can use a tool on this actor in the world, and that removes the grunge that we've applied to it. And the same with damage. So the more damaged this becomes, we can swap this mesh with a damaged version, for example. So all of these floor tiles will track health and dirt and all that sort of thing. Yeah, so let's say this floor panel here is destroyed. It's been completely trashed. The ship was hit. This area was in the damage sphere. and all you've got left is just tatters hanging from the bolt holes. So what you would do is you would highlight the space where this was, and you have a tool for that in the world. So you use that tool to highlight this area, and it would just say remove floor panel. So then you remove it completely, so there's nothing left. You've just got clean bolts waiting for you. So it would look like that. So that's what you'd be left with. You'd just be left with this space with no panel. You then 3D print a new floor panel, and then that floor panel would exist as a box, a physical box in the world that would say floor panel on it. You'd then use that box on this space, which would highlight with like a ghost of the panel, and then when you use the box, the original panel just pops back into place like that. So that's kind of how that's planned to work. And that will be the same for wall panels, for ceiling panels. Anything which can be damaged and you remove it, there will be a generic box or roll of wire or something, just a generic representation of that object, that when you use that on that space, it will then become that specific tile. Alan, there will be various tools for those purposes. So there'll be an engineering tool, and well, there'll be multiple engineering tools. So there'll be like an electrical tool, there'll be a plumbing tool, and these are just like handheld things you wave at stuff to give you data back. The way the interface is designed within the game world is every crew member is wearing a little earpiece, which is essentially like an AR projector, and when you pick up a tool, it automatically connects to that headpiece, like via Bluetooth or something. So the data you see on your HUD is coming from that tool that you're holding via your little AR projector that you've got by your ear. So there could be like a construction tool, and any crew member can pick that up and use it. So the captain can go and grab one of those tools and use it themselves to go and check the health values of everything. The game is set in the year 2261, which is the 300-year anniversary of humans first orbiting the Earth. And yes, there will be robots and Roombas and that sort of thing roaming the ship. Yeah, we had a discussion about how proficient someone needs to be with a given tool at any particular time. So we'll probably handle this by way of actual when you perform an action. So anyone can pick up a tool and wave it at a pipe, and it will tell you the damage level of that pipe. So anyone can do that. It's a simple action. However, if you try and repair that pipe, then someone who's actually in the engineering role and is experienced in that action will do a better job at it. So the overall quality of the pipe will reduce less if you are skilled at using that tool. So if an untrained crew member tries to repair something, generally speaking, whilst they might be able to repair the thing, they'll reduce its quality a lot more than someone else would. Yeah, if you roll a natural 1, you break the pipe and then scold yourself and end up in sickbay. Right, so I've just made this object unique because these particular details are not lined up with what the walls are. they need to go. These ones are a mirror of that, so we can just copy these over. So if we just copy those 180 degrees, that fixes that problem. They're all nicely lined up now. Similarly on this side, these ones are the old design, so they can go away. And then we'll use these ones. And I also need these. Okay, that's better. Iferret, yeah, that is already a thing actually. So the naming convention for everything is it starts from big to small. So it goes deck, quadrant, ring, and then panel. So for example, this panel here, this would be C. I'm gonna get this right in my head now. So what so that's port. So no, it's not. It's 4. So that'd be CF. So that's C deck forward. 1. So CF1 because it's ring 1, and then O1 L for left. So CF 101L would be this panel here. C deck forward, ring 1, panel 1 left. The idea is that you're always going clockwise. So for any curved corridor, you assume clockwise travel. So you have left or right, but you also have up and down as well. So upper or lower, probably up and down might be easier. So this would be CF 101 D for the floor panel. F or D. Maybe F would be better for floor. There are places like where we have straight, and where they're straight, you always assume movement away from the center. So left is always left from the perspective of having your back to the middle of the ship. And all of the panels will have that label on them. The doors will have that as their door number. So you should, I guess you want 2 layers of detail. So for people that want hardcore engineering, it'll say on the fault report, for example, if there's a faulty wire you need to go and fix, it will literally say the code for where that wire is, in addition to having a marker on the world. Right, so these ones here are in every way different to the ones up on B-Deck, so these need designing separately. So get rid of those ones, and then we'll steal that one there. So take our midpoint on the support panel there, pop that to the midpoint on that one. And then we need, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So times 5 gives us our 5. That's them nicely lined up. And then I'll need to make a support for that one. Just around there. I think, yeah, then I need to mirror that around this side. So just delete these ones for now. This is one of the reasons I decided to go with the circular hull shape from the very beginning, was so that I could build it quickly like this, just by copy pasting things in a circle. Working with circles and straight lines is a much easier way of doing it. You'll see when we get to doing this bit, it's going to be a lot more painful, because this is a tightening curve. It's a Bezier curve, so you can't just copy things nicely with a central rotation point, because every single one of these segments has a different rotation point in the world. Such is the nature of a Bezier curve. Let's borrow one of these little guides that I've made myself. So we want you to be there. Let's get rid of this lot a minute, just so that not overrun with templates. Caught me. Just to make sure this is in the right spot, it should be an exact figure through to. Stop doing the thing. Use that instead. So that's exactly 1200, which is good. That means it's in the right spot. Over to the next one. Right, so having done that, that now gives me a space space to draw a curve between. But before I do, some other little guides that I made here, which I shall just get rid of. So I'll just draw a line down to say, there I guess that's where it needs to go to. That's my height marker. And I will use a 6-sided arc. We will draw from there to there. That will be our floor support, and I can only assume that side's going to be wrong as well. Oh, maybe not actually. That one's all right. To swap out the support mesh, but other than that, that bit's fine. So we only need to do this one. Anyone who's watched my previous streams will recognize what I'm doing with this. I have to make many of them. Part of the reason I'm using consistent measurements for everything, like, so I know that I'm always copying that 10 centimeters long, and I'm always dropping that down by 5 centimeters. Oh, I managed to mess that one up. And knowing that means that it's quick to make new ones every time you need a new one. Soften and smooth, remove the bottom face, champ for the edge. Yeah, there we go, there's our full support. Simple as that. And then just to add a bit of polish, we'll stick on a weld line. Don't want to, only need the one. Make it flush to begin with, and then I know that I only need to move it by 90 degrees to make it perpendicular. And then just grab that edge there, put that in there, use that as a path for that, and then we've got our weld line smoothly wrapped around. Color from the other one, but this has got geometry we don't need, so I'm just going to copy that surface, delete everything, and then paste that surface back in, Now we've only got the bit we want. And then just pop that into that component. And that would have copied it to the rest of them when we do that. Now we simply need to... Why is it doing that? Copy it from that one to that one. Times 5. There we go, that's all 5 of them. And then we'll also rotate them, rotate them 180 degrees. That gives us on this side as well. Right, there we go, job done. This floor should not have a hole in it, so that can get fixed. Right, and this should be a finished mesh now. So something I've made a mistake with, and I'm kind of stuck with at this point, unless I want to go through and rename everything, is that I called this bit ring 0. Ideally, I should have made this ring 1 and carried that naming convention forwards. So in the game, this corridor is ring 1, but in terms of the meshes and everything, it's all part of ring 0, which is the middle bit. So that catches me out from time to time. Doesn't affect the game, it's just from a development standpoint, it's an error I made which I now have to live with. So that is ring 0 framework, and that's the D-deck sheet. Obviously it's the top of D-deck that we've just done there. I use GitLab for source control. Essentially the entire dev folder. So that folder contains SketchUp files, it contains all the artwork, the actual Unreal project itself, the raw audio files, various like social media and platform artwork as well. So all of that folder is version controlled on GitLab. Okay, so now that we've exported that, we simply need to come into Unreal, take our old version, and then re-import the new one. There we go, all done. Nice and simple. Now, in order to actually put in the floor panels and everything, we also need those anchor points setting up. And for that, there is actually a facility where you can copy them from an existing mesh. So if I turn on CDeck Sheet, I think I'm going to turn on my handy dandy super light here so I can see everything better. So if we take this one, oh, didn't like that. Did it crash? That's the question. No, there we go. It's interesting because it's moved that mesh without putting it in the undo queue. The undo queue. Right, and what we actually wanted to move it to was DDeck Framework Sheet. So it shouldn't throw an error now. Right, okay. Right, and then that should be minus 350. Now I need to remember to do this in the right order now. So from here, we need to copy the sockets from that mesh relative to the world origin. Right, and we can now delete that one. Now this one, we can now paste those sockets and get rid of any existing ones. Right, now unless I mess that up, we should now have the sockets. Perfect. Now obviously those ones are all right. These ones are not. So these ones are going to need to be moved. Which I'll do in a moment. But it does mean, for these ones at least, we can do some floor placement. So, if memory serves, make sure I'm on the right level now. So we want CDeck interior walls, because that's the level we want to put it in. Right, yeah, so this is all the existing carpeting, which can now go away. And you can see here that the previous carpet was much bigger meshes, like that there as a whole solid piece, which is no good if we want to start adding health and damage and all that stuff to them. So they need to go away to make room for a better system. So that one, I believe, should fit that hole there. The anchor point's definitely there. Come on, pop in place. It does this sometimes, don't know why. So you can see here the anchor point is, so you've got the red axis facing that way, and then the red axis facing that way, and they connect red to red. They're both called anchor. Why won't you snap? That's snapping. And that one's snapping. So why won't you snap? Okay. Right, so we also need lift, entrance. Go there. Sorry, Claire just came in and asked me to explain something. So, when Unreal Engine is designed as such that you can actually have multiple people working on it, literally in real time. I haven't experimented with that feature yet, but they do support doing that. Check the direction on that. No, it's fine. Yeah, so if you're talking about a SketchUp file specifically, then no, two people cannot work on the same SketchUp file at the same time. So if you had two people working on the same ship in SketchUp, then you'd need to have maybe one file per deck and split it up that way. But in terms of like working on the game itself, then you just make yourself a new branch on Git. You do all of your updates to your branch on GitLab, and then when you're done with your changes, you then merge your changes to the master branch. Now, obviously, if two people happen to work on the same blueprint and they both make changes to the same blueprint, then when their two respective branches are merged into the master branch, then you're going to get a merge conflict, and you'll have to pick which one of those two blueprints you want to keep. So it does require some coordination between team members as to who's working on what. So generally speaking, like if I'm working with Claire and she's planting flowers in the planters or something, then she'll say something like, you know, don't do anything to C deck because I'm currently working on C deck. So it means I won't touch anything on C deck because I don't want a merge conflict with something I might have done overlapping something she may have done. Does that make sense? But yeah, so as I said, in Unreal, you can work on it almost like in multiplayer. So you start a session and then you're both working within the engine at the same time. So you can both be placing assets into a level together in a multiplayer session, an editor session, which is very cool, but I've never actually set it up and got it working. This one needs to be this one. So I don't know why these ones aren't snapping. There's obviously something going on with that. I might need a editor restart. Like these ones are snapping fine. He says. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, so those ones are snapping fine. Interesting how that one's facing t'other way. But with the snapping tool plugin, they don't actually need to be on the same level as one another, which is kind of one of the benefits of that plugin. Like this one here is on framework sheets, and then this one is on interior walls. So these are on two separate levels, and yet they will still snap together because of the plugin. So we know that the anchor point is there, so that's working. And we know that the anchor point is there, so it's definitely there. It's just choosing not to snap. Ooh, you know what? I bet I know what it is. I bet you this has removed its collision. Because it needs to have, yeah, there we go, look. That's the problem. If the mesh doesn't have collision, it won't snap. There we go. I knew it would be something silly. This particular one, that needs to face the other way. So on the socket, we need to do that. And we need to change that to say anchor so that it knows which one it's connecting to. And that should now snap as well. Or not. It's a rotation issue on that one. Right, and then similarly, that one will snap over there, just like that. Yeah, so with GitLab, we're using LFA, large file, something or other. Can't remember the acronym now, but we're using the large file flag. LFS, thank you, that's it, yeah. We've never had a problem with it. Our GitLab size is something like 80 gig, I think. Oh, I'm not going to tell you. Yeah, a bit bigger than 80 gig. Yeah, So that's how big our Git is at the moment. 167 gig. It's a bit of a monster. No, the GitLab is internal only. You can see merges and things on our Discord because we've got a channel that it has a webhook. But yeah, source access is internal only. So with so while we've got up here, the floor tiles are arranged in such a way to make room for a security desk. On this side, it's going to be slightly different. So I'd like to have that this floaty wall sign here was always meant to be temporary. I wanted something like a really nice famous science quote or something on the wall for C Deck. Obviously it will still say Deck C Science Labs, but I wanted like a nice quote or something with a planter and some flowers and something. Maybe a couple of seats and a coffee table. So as much as this is a thoroughfare, I thought it would be nice because it's such a wide open space to just have a table and some chairs there as well. So the floor tiles for this bit are going to be different from the floor tiles for this bit. Probably keep these two edge pieces the same and then just change up the two middle pieces. Chris, yeah, absolutely. We'll go over the Aperture Science one. Random Dan trivia. I've always wanted to have just a plain white van with the Aperture Science logo on the side of it that says Aperture Science Emergency Response Team. I don't know why, I've just always fancied that. So I think this floor tile here should fit quite happily over on this side. So we'll grab a copy of that and just bring it over. Plop. Hang on a minute. All right, not there. There. Is that the right one? I've confused myself now. Right, yeah, so these ones should exactly be the same as the ones on the other side. So yeah, if I do that, copy that in a straight line. Yeah, so these ones should fit there, right? Is it just that one? Oh, no. That's weird. Why are they not showing up in the socket manager? I'm going to close that mesh and reopen it. Phew, I was hoping that would happen. Okay. Alright, so something a bit weird has happened with these sockets here. So that one should be minus 1200. Or just 1200. Minus 1200. And then 0? Or is that the other one that was there? Right, so you're definitely correct. So why? For some reason, it's shifted the socket location, which is why that tile is in the wrong place. Now that one seemed to be alright, so that should just be correct. Yeah, so that's in the correct place. And then that one isn't. So that copy paste that we did obviously messed that up. Now hopefully if it didn't mess up the rotations, then this should be an easy enough job to fix. All we need to do is grab that. It will be easier. Copy paste it then. Except we can't because it's in a group. Hang on, it's in the wrong place there. Oh, I see what's happened. Right, that's because on B deck they're in a different location. Right, okay, okay. This makes sense now. So you need to go away, you need to go away. Let's do you and you. Right, I need to copy that one to the midpoint on there. Let's make sure we get that exactly right. And the same again. use this tool for this, so minus 1049,159. And that one was 582465. And that rotation's probably off. So let's just sort that out as well. 60.962. This is that, minus 1190. Right, so that one should be correct now. Okay. $308.40. Yeah, I use object files. I don't. At no point do I ever export the entire ship. It's literally one mesh at a time. That's better. These ones I can just copy the values to. So that one's minus 582, that one will be plus 582. Okay, there we go. Right, these ones are going to need a custom sized floor piece. And this is going to need obviously the T-piece section. But the important thing is that like I didn't need to make these panels again because I'd already made them for B-Deck. So these were just a straight copy paste. And even though I'm having to make a custom T-piece for here, that's now the same on every single deck. So as I work my way out through the ship, most of it is going to be copy pastable between decks, which just speeds things up. Like these straight sections, I've engineered it in such a way that this is always exactly 250 on the straight sections. So it means any straight section panel will fit any floor or indeed ceiling or wall. So I only need to make those once. Okay. So let's fix this. A lot of people have pointed out that, and that is simply because that wall doesn't have a hole cut in it, but these ones now do, so we can fix that one immediately. So ring 0, framework, C deck walls. Quick as me, sort of. The framework pieces are all exported retaining the world origin, because they're large sections of ship that never need to move anywhere. They're not used for anything, or like we're not doing anything where we need to know the location of the object, for example. Whereas with the floor panels and things, they have their own origin point. So like this, for example, if you look at the mesh, you can see that the origin for the mesh is there underneath. So these are not using SketchUp's world origin, whereas these bits are. So you can see that the origin point for this, judging by where the grid is in the middle here somewhere. There. There, somewhere. There, yeah, there. Or there, I don't know, somewhere around there. But because this piece isn't referenced by anything, it doesn't matter that it's using the world origin. So essentially, game engine wise, every single piece of framework is at 000 in the world. It's just the geometry that's offset from there. But because it's just a giant chunk, I'm not bothered by that. Whereas these pieces, however, we do run some distance checks to the player. And because of that, it means that the origin point needs to be where the mesh is for that distance check to work. Right, so that's finished exporting. We do actually have that open. So if we now re-import that, then hooray, it's fixed. Obviously we have a new material we need to deal with, which is the insulation. sure the collisions are set up properly on this. So with nanite, if you use complex collision as simple, it uses the nanite fallback mesh as the collision mesh, which looks like this. So this is the actual collision mesh that it's using. Which isn't too terrible in this instance. It can cause issues though. So something I worked out previously. So yeah, if you set relative error as your fallback percentage, and then start reducing that, so say 90%. Should start improving some of the collision geometry. Sure, it was that one I used last time. Or was it? Am I going mad? Oh yeah, it was that. Okay, so right, so by setting it to 0%, the collision mesh is exactly the exported mesh, which obviously we don't want because that's a crazy amount of polygons. So I will be adding custom collisions to these at some point. This is just a temporary thing for now. Help if I typed it in the right box, wouldn't it? That'll do, I think. So this is a kind of an example of the sort of thing you'll see when working on things. So we need to move this panel up a bit. So all that needs to shift vertically because we want the access panel to be slightly bigger. So when you interact with the panel, I think I might have it sort of pop in and slide up on the interior of the panel. What we don't want is for the panel to be physically thrown around, because matching, say, the panel that fits this one with this one, they're going to be different sizes, and that's going to turn into a nightmare. So I might just have it on a hinge, so it flaps up inside somewhere, and then you'll see all the pipes and cables revealed to be able to access them. Yeah, I'll try a couple of different approaches and see. I'm not sure what you mean by references for the engines. The engines, if you're talking sublight, are going to be Vasmir style rockets. So essentially they're plasma rockets. Alex, yes, definitely. Yeah, every single one of these is going to need a custom collision mesh eventually, which is going to be a long, tedious task, but I might just have to employ someone to do that. I mean, it works fine as it is. I mean, I've closed it now, but like this one, for example, if we go to the Now Light fallback, so the collision mesh on this is atrocious. But that doesn't really matter too much because the player isn't actually stepping on any of this. So even if this floor is completely destroyed, the collision mesh will still be there, just hidden. So you won't actually be stepping down into the collision hell that would be this. Although, while we're here, we could fix it a little bit. That's better, that'll do for now. Let's get rid of B-deck walls and C-deck walls for a moment. Let's sort out this mesh here. I think that one is generally in a good place. Got an insulation mesh to build for that. Oh, look at those horrible, horrible creases. Hang on, let's sort them out. That's better. Okay, so we need to cut windows and door holes in a couple of those. That's fine. That's also fine there. Right, let's do this mesh here then. Okay, so for the most part, this is going to be a straight copy. So the only thing that's going to be different on here, so obviously we don't have this corridor, this one, so this is not needed. As I said, I'll probably keep the two side pieces and then just have that maybe come around away from the back wall like that to form the seating area and everything. Right, and then we need that cut round there to align to that as well. Let's grab a template. that over there. Make sure I got those the right height. The beauty of using these templates is that I always know exactly where things need to be. So I know that the edge of that cut needs to go exactly down there, because my template tells me so. Which means that should be exactly 10 centimeters away from there, which it is. Perfect. So once I've worked out the segmentation along here, as you can see, it's a little bit messy right now, so I just need to work out where the segments are going to go, and then we can align the curve geometry with 6 sides for every panel, just so that we don't get any gaps when they're put next to each other inside the engine. If I take my template, copy that 90 degrees, we can do the same thing on this side, although that having been said, I do believe I mirrored that. I did, yeah, so that's fine. Didn't need to do that at all. Anything we do on this side will be automatically mirrored on this side. As you can see, this line's already appeared. Work smarter, not harder. Right, so these panels should be identical to these ones. To make sure that this piece is in the right place. So from there to there, that is 62, and I do believe it should be 50. Okay, Alex, thanks for watching. Always good to see you on stream. Right, yeah, so this one is 50 centimeters with a tiny little floating point glitch. But generally speaking, it should be 50, which means this side should also be 50. Again, with a tiny, tiny margin of error, which I will fix because that will annoy me otherwise. And this should also be an exact distance from the center, which it is. So there are no decimals on that, so we know that this is our ground truth. This is exactly where it should be. So if we extend that edge out 50 centimeters, and then we stick a 90-degree angle on there. That should be where we line up our panel to. So if we bring that out, it should be exactly 5. That is where that should be. Okay, Jim, thanks for watching the stream. Right, so now that's lined up, it means we also need to line that one up. And then these. So this is, again, this is a component, so this should be the same as every other 250 centimeter panel. Which if I measure end to end, should be exactly 250, which it is. So it means that one and that one just snugly go there, which means the distance between this support and this one should be exactly 250, which it is. So this is an example of kind of why everything needs to be consistent, because by doing this I know that the door frame I make for this particular bulkhead is also going to fit this bulkhead, and it's also going to fit this bulkhead, because if that support is always exactly 50 centimeters away from the wall of the bulkhead, then we can use that same asset across the board for every place on the ship, which is not only convenient from a game engine perspective, but it also makes sense from an engineering perspective as well. The fewer number of proprietary parts you can have, the better. Which means that design-wise, for every straight corridor intersection, the only unique piece in each one is going to be this corner. So for every corridor ring, like including this one, so there's a straight bit here, which means we'll have one of these bulkheads here, and then we'll have 250 centimeter panels all the way out until we can't fit any more, and then the corner piece will be where we make up the difference. Yeah, definitely, for sure. So, architecturally, this is just the sensible way of doing it. That's it. So we make a unique proprietary panel for the corner, and then all the straight panels are the same, which means we can copy paste the wall, the ceiling, and the floor every time we have a straight bit, which is like here, 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 and the other places on the other side. so at some point this is going to need rebuilding, and I think we'll get rid of those pillars for now. And we will hide them. This is our new framework for that area of the ship. So it's got its own individual pieces. These need measuring properly. I've just left them there for now. So all of that. We copy that. That's going into the walls level, so put that there. Bring it down by 350, which should line it up exactly with the floor. Just checking, yep, exactly. Now obviously, unlike B deck, we don't have the VIP quarters to wrap around, so we need to sort out this bit of corridor here. What I'm going to do is I need to make that a component. And then anything we do here will be mirrored over the other side. Just to facilitate in the lining up of said component. I just draw a little triangle there. There is method to my madness. All I need to do now is just copy that across, mirror it, and then we can line up these two triangles, and I know that it's exactly where it needs to be. So we put them in the same point there, join them up there. So now we know that this one is exactly mirrored to the other one. And then we can get rid of that. Okay. It's funny you should mention the Lego. Robo in our Discord server, he actually made the VIP lounge in Lego and it looks really good. Like, surprisingly good. It's really cool. I think he, if you go into the Showcase Your Work channel, it's in there somewhere. Yeah, speaking of 3D printing, once this is done, I will be releasing the SketchUp file for anyone that wants to have a go at 3D printing it. Obviously, it's not really modelled for 3D printing, but if you want to take it and run with it, feel free. I'd like to think with the amount of engineering that's going into it, it would stand up to being 3D printed and it would support itself. Yeah, so with the damaged versions, I think what I'm going to try and do is, rather than specifically modeling a damaged version or multiple damaged versions, because what you don't want to happen, so consider this floor here. Do we have an example floor? Right, yeah. If you have the same damage mesh over and over and over and over, you can tell that it's the same damaged panel, which would look silly. But what you can do is you can do procedural asset modeling in Unreal. So the PCG tools, you can do a lot of like Boolean cuts and things in real time. So I'll probably have a try at doing procedural damage meshes for damaged panels, which means each damaged panel will look different to the one next to it. Yeah, essentially procedural deformations. We'll see how that goes. Not sure how heavy that's going to be rendering wise. If, say, we've got a couple of thousand floor panels, if each one is doing a separate procedural mesh, then that's probably going to be quite heavy. So we'll try it and see. Worst case scenario, they'll be modelled individually. Yeah, we could probably go down a similar route. The issue with doing that, like for example, we could use vertex painting. So if we vertex painted meshes to apply damage details and things, that works fine for the game that you're in. But what about if you want to save that game and loading it again later? Like, how do you save all that vertex paint information for every single mesh in the game world? It starts to become a logistical nightmare. Now, it could be that every time you load the game, the damage looks different. So it's still damaged, but different each time. Yeah, seed-based, actually. That's a good way of doing it. Yeah, seed random streams. That is a good point. It'll be fun to play with that. So we want Ring 1 framework D-deck rear sheet. That one. Greetings, CSX. And hello, Jack, as well. I didn't see you pop back in. Yeah, we just use the coordinates for the seed. It's the easiest way to do it. That's the same as what we're doing in the galaxy. So the coordinates of the galactic sector is what defines the seed for that sector. So what's this one? This one's framework, C-deck, rear walls. Galactic Survivor. Sorry, I missed your question. Yes, so I'm just exporting as an object file, a .obj, which Blender can open. Find that there's probably going to be a scale difference and probably an up direction difference as well, but it can definitely import it. Fast, yeah, that's absolutely the point. I mean, one of my original reasons for starting this project is because it's an engineering study. I wanted to go through the thought process and just like an engineering experiment. If we were building one of these things, how would we build it for real? So it has to be that detailed just to kind of meet that original goal that I'd set for myself. And it would be a shame if you couldn't see any of it because it's all hidden behind the wall at all times. So that's why the access hatches to get to the infrastructure will reveal what's actually behind the walls, and everything's destructible for that reason too. Mr. Seeker, yeah, so probably not in the way that you're thinking. So if a panel was damaged, so let's say these panels here, so if this panel had a lot of damage to it and that damage hadn't got as far as the other panels, then the panels either side would be undamaged. Because if the ship takes an impact, say here, then what the game will do is it will draw a sphere of impact around that damage point, and the closer you are to the center of the sphere, the more damage you will have taken. So if the sphere impacts here, then there's going to be a lot of damage to this panel, not so much to these panels either side, and then hardly any to this one. So you'll have lots of damage, not quite so much damage, and no damage, but you won't have like an arc of damage there. It's definitely per panel. Yes, Martin, the SketchUp file is definitely the source of truth for all of the measurements and all of the designs. In fact, it's the only source of truth, really. And yes, there will definitely be poop pipes. This is another example of why we don't just let SketchUp do stuff, because look at these horrible, horrible crease lines. Now granted, that's because when we've curved these edges, this surface here is an n-gon, and because it's an n-gon, it's, obviously it looks trash. Fortunately, face-weighted normals fixes that. So if we sort that out, click that, press that. You can see that horrible crease line is now gone. Huzzah. Frustratingly though, Unreal doesn't remember that per mesh, so every time you re-import the mesh, you've got to go through and do that again. So there's always going to be some that I've forgotten to do. Yeah, there's the editor scripting utility which can do stuff like that. I've got various things like this one, for example, so I can like nudge assets. I've got some quite convoluted editor scripting things, which are always very handy when you're building things quickly. Right, so I'm going to copy the sockets from this one. So we need DDEC framework sheet. We need to copy that down 350 units so that they overlap. We then need to copy the sockets. Okay, that mesh can now be deleted. Paste the sockets on this one, deleting any that are already there because we don't need them. Which means we should now be able to place some floor panels directly on that. So flooring, ring 1. Forgot what I called them now. Right, so we've got the top side one, which should pop into place there. Yeah, great. And then the bottom side one, which should pop into place there. Excellent. Right, and then both of those need to be mirrored. Nice. So again, I think what I'll do, I'll make this side just into a plain panel, and on this side we'll have the trim maybe come out at a 45-degree angle there, and just kind of maybe do that. And then we'll just have a little sofa there with a table in front of it. A couple of magazines. Just a nice little seating area. I'll try and keep it small so it doesn't get in the way of people walking around. It's almost 10:30. Actually, it is 10:30. So I'm going to call it a night in a minute. But before I do, I'll just get rid of some of these sockets that we don't need. Now, this is an interesting bug in 5.4. Is after you copy sockets, they don't appear in the socket manager. So you have to close the mesh and reopen it. Fortunately, it is that simple, but yeah, it could prove to be annoying. I think those are the only ones we should actually need. Obviously, so I need to decide, because obviously I haven't got any corridor sockets on this mesh because they're on this mesh instead, so they don't need to be doubled up on here. So for the other meshes, so obviously this is a corridor here. Maybe I'll use this one for these sides and the back. something to think about, which floors am I actually attaching the sockets to. But, that can be a problem for another day. Oops, let's get rid of some of these other levels a second. Look, there's Steve floating in midair. Hi, Steve. Okay, so what we have left to do on C deck then, it doesn't look as bad as it is, or rather it's not as bad as it looks, rather. Like these pieces here are all actually identical, so I'm only actually having to make one of them and then I can copy paste it to the rest, so that's going to reduce the workload a bit. Similarly on the wings, so obviously this side is identical to this side, and yeah, it's mirrored perfectly down the center, so only having to do half the work there. Yeah, there's 3 unique sections here because this side and this side are mirrored. So again, I only need to make one of these and it's copied across. So hopefully it's not going to take too long to get C deck properly done. I will make an effort to try and get that done for Friday's build. So at least we've got C deck fleshed out with ceiling panels all lit up properly. The rooms won't be lit up yet, but all the corridors will be. And then we'll see if we can get this stairwell done here as well. And then it becomes the fun part of adding the rest of the ship in there, which, in case anyone has forgotten, looks a bit like this. So all these corridors and things all need building out, as do the other rooms, and this is going to be like a giant mall area, so that needs building. And then we'll get the fun part of doing the shuttle bay. I'm quite looking forward to the shuttle bay, actually. It should be a challenging build. Okay. So yeah, so the design of it all is pretty much finalized. So this template here, like you've got all the wall thicknesses, the corridor width and everything. These lines here are the cut points for the individual framework blocks rather. So, you know, I've already mapped out where the cuts are going to be and how wide everything needs to be. So it really is just a case of just, you know, modeling that geometry, laying it out and working out the layout of everything was the time consuming part. So it's just a case of building it now. You know, the design work's done. I expect as I'm building it, certain things will probably come to light where I think, you know, I could have fitted that in better, but we'll, you know, cross that bridge when we come to it. Obviously, I can't put out the next demo update until this at least is airtight. So, you know, it doesn't need to be finished, it just needs to be airtight so you can walk around it. That's kind of my line in the sand for the demo update. So obviously I want to get that done as quickly as possible. So this is very much on the immediate agenda. Yeah, cross that bulkhead when we come to it. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to go and have a drink and I might just go for a walk, because why not? Thanks again everyone for watching the stream. yeah, I don't think I've got any announcements or anything to make on this stream. So on that note, I shall see you all on Wednesday stream, same time, 8 PM BST. Thanks again, and I shall see you then.